The flickering light of candles cast a warm glow over the grandeur of the great hall, where a lavish banquet was laid out for a gathering of noble guests. At the main table, two young Scottish nobles, mere boys aged 10 and 16, were savoring the fine hospitality extended by Scotland's regent. This dinner, ostensibly a gathering for reconciliation, promised an opportunity to mend the rifts that had persisted through years of bitter conflict. However, unbeknownst to those in attendance, this evening would go down in history as the Black Dinner, a night marked by one of the most profound acts of betrayal in the annals of European royal history. How could a seemingly innocent invitation to dinner devolve into a massacre that would irrevocably alter the fate of one of Scotland's most influential families? To comprehend this catastrophic betrayal, we must delve into the tumultuous fabric of Scotland's medieval past. In the early 15th century, Scotland was engulfed in political turmoil. The assassination of King James I in 1437 left behind an infant heir, James II, who was merely 6 years old at the time. This power vacuum created a volatile scenario, with various noble factions vying to assert their dominance. Among these factions, the Douglas family stood as one of Scotland's most formidable dynasties. The Earls of Douglas wielded significant control over vast estates spanning the southern regions of the country and maintained private armies capable of rivaling the royal forces themselves. Their power was so extensive that they often defied royal authority, effectively carving out a semi-autonomous realm within Scotland. This precarious situation intensified during the minority of James II. The sixth Earl, William Douglas, had lost his life at the Battle of Verneuil in 1424, leaving the earldom to his two sons, William, the newly minted seventh Earl, and his younger brother, David. The boys were raised under the guardianship of their formidable great-aunt, Margaret Douglas, known as the Fair Maid of Galloway, a woman of remarkable cunning who sought to leverage her wards to expand the already substantial influence of their family. Despite their youth, the young Douglas brothers inherited not only their titles and estates, but also the fierce loyalty of thousands of soldiers and dozens of strategically located castles. Their lands stretched from Scotland's border with England to its very heart, posing an ongoing challenge to royal authority. The Douglas family cultivated essential alliances with other significant noble houses, creating an extensive network of resistance against the encroaching central power. William Kitten, Chancellor of Scotland and acting regent during the king's minority, viewed the young Douglas lords as a grave existential threat to the realm. A seasoned and calculating politician, Kitten had spent his career consolidating royal power and diminishing the influence of the great noble houses. He recognized that as long as the Douglases retained their substantial power, any hope for a united Scottish monarchy would remain elusive. In the early years of his regency, Kitten attempted diverse strategies to neutralize the Douglas threat. He proposed advantageous marriages, tried to bribe the family's allies, and even pondered direct military intervention. Yet, each effort faltered against the strength and loyalty of the Douglas clan and their forces. It soon became evident that conventional tactics would be insufficient. The situation became increasingly volatile in 1439 when William Douglas, now 15, was formally invested as the seventh Earl during a lavish ceremony, attended by thousands, including representatives from other noble houses and foreign emissaries. This public display of power was interpreted as a bold proclamation of the family's status, indicating that they considered themselves rivals to the crown. Amid this rising tension, Kitten conceived a desperate and treacherous plan. If conventional means were ineffective, he would resort to deception and betrayal. The scheme was brutally straightforward: entice the young Douglas brothers into a trap, eliminate them, and handle any fallout that ensued. Although the plan risked plunging Scotland into civil war, Kitten believed it was the only viable method to secure the monarchy. The opportunity for betrayal materialized during the autumn of 1440 when the Douglas family found themselves embroiled in disputes with other noble families, which sowed discord throughout the kingdom. Kitten exploited this situation, proposing a reconciliation dinner at Edinburgh Castle as a means to resolve old differences through civilized diplomacy. The invitation was crafted to seem genuinely sincere. Kitten emphasized the presence of young King James II and assured that the dinner would symbolize national unity. He even provided solemn guarantees that the meeting would adhere to the sacred laws of Scottish hospitality, which rendered any violence against invited guests an unpardonable offense. Despite initial hesitation and counsel from his advisors warning him of the potential dangers, William Douglas ultimately accepted the invitation, swayed by the allure of meeting the king and promises of security. His younger brother David was eager to join him, viewing the occasion as an exciting adventure, oblivious to the dark political machinations at play. On the fateful night of November 24th, the two brothers arrived at the castle, accompanied by a small escort, and trusted completely in the assurances that had been given to them. Their arrival was marked by the customary honors befitting their status, and they were escorted into the great hall where the banquet awaited. Everything appeared perfectly normal, an appropriate reception for a high-stakes diplomatic meeting. The dinner commenced in an atmosphere of cordiality, with young King James II engaging amiably with the Douglas brothers. The food was excellent, the wine abundant, and the evening seemed genuinely friendly. William began to feel at ease, convinced his initial misgivings were unfounded. However, as the evening wore on, the atmosphere subtly shifted from warm to foreboding. More guards appeared at the entrances, the number of armed servants increased noticeably, and some guests began to withdraw discreetly. Absorbed in the exceptional food and lively conversation, the Douglas brothers failed to recognize the growing threat surrounding them. The decisive moment arrived as the main courses were being cleared away. Kitten rose ostensibly to propose a toast, but signaled in a prearranged manner. Instantly, armed soldiers emerged from the shadows, surrounding the table where the young Douglas brothers sat. Seizing the moment, William leapt from his chair to reach for his sword, only to find that he had been quietly disarmed over the course of the evening. David, terrified and confused, pressed against his older brother, shedding helpless tears. Young King James II, witnessing the unfolding horror, attempted to intervene but was promptly restrained by his own guards. What followed was one of the most shocking episodes in medieval Scottish history. William Douglas, merely 16, was dragged from the table and brutally executed in the hall before the eyes of his younger brother and the child king. David, at just 10 years old, was forced to watch his brother's murder before meeting the same grisly fate. In that moment, the sacred laws of Scottish hospitality were callously trampled. Kitten's betrayal did not end with the brothers' deaths. He had meticulously orchestrated the aftermath, dispatching royal soldiers to seize Douglas properties, arrest family allies, and dismantle their private armies. This operation unfolded with military precision, taking full advantage of the shock that enveloped the Douglas clan following the loss of its leaders. News of the Black Dinner spread swiftly through Scotland, inciting horror even among the Douglas family's adversaries. The violation of the sacred tenet of hospitality struck at the very core of medieval societal norms. If guests could not rely on the safety extended by their hosts, how could any semblance of diplomacy endure? Margaret Douglas was utterly heartbroken upon receiving the news of the betrayal. The woman who had dedicated her life to the protection of her wards was forced to confront the grim reality that her efforts had been in vain. Her grief transformed into a profound thirst for vengeance, prompting her to immediately organize a military response against Kitten. The reaction among Douglas allies was explosive, and noble families that had remained loyal for generations united in a fierce alliance for revenge. Even those who had previously been neutral or outright hostile towards the Douglas clan were shocked by the brutal nature of Kitten's treachery. Young King James II was deeply traumatized by the events he had witnessed. Though a mere child, his presence at the dinner haunted him throughout his life, affecting his psyche and influencing his reign. Soon, Kitten discovered that what he perceived as a tactical victory had spiraled into a strategic disaster. While he had eliminated the key figures of the Douglas leadership, his betrayal had unwittingly united their enemies in ways he had never achieved while the brothers were alive. The moral outrage and betrayal provided powerful motivation for a coalition of Douglas allies to launch a comprehensive military offensive against Kitton in early 1441, plunging Scotland into civil war, a state of turmoil, precisely the instability he had sought to prevent through his duplicitous act. Ironically, the scheme touted to bolster the monarchy only served to weaken it. The association with such treachery left a stain on James II's rule and fostered an atmosphere of mistrust towards the nobility during his reign. The Black Dinner had profound and lasting ramifications on Scottish political culture, transforming into a symbol of the depths to which ambition could drive individuals. This dark tale became a cautionary narrative about the perils of placing trust in political promises. More than 500 years later, the Black Dinner is still remembered as one of Scotland's darkest chapters. The story of the young brothers' betrayal continues to captivate historians, serving as a poignant reminder that even in an age marked by cruelty, certain betrayals were so egregious that they forever tarnished the reputations of their perpetrators. Kitton's treachery ultimately proved futile, yet it highlighted the lengths to which individuals would go for power. And the tragic deaths of the young Douglas brothers stand as a somber testament to an era in which the ambition for rank and control often overshadowed the sanctity of human life. To this day, the legacy of the Black Dinner echoes through the annals of history, underscoring the notion that some ethical lines should never be crossed, even in the desperate quest for power. The betrayal exemplified the sinister potential of hospitality to transform into a deadly trap and illustrated how trust, once broken, leads to consequences far beyond the intentions of those who sought to manipulate it.